Right now on the National Weather Desk, as powerful winds cause damage in the southeast, warm weather raises flood fears out west.
We knew this was coming. We just didn't know it was going to be this much and this fast.
Algae alert. New concerns in Texas after blooms are discovered on 2 bodies of water.
You could have gastrointestinal issues. You could have headaches. You could have some muscle spasms.
Sweet treats. Will this year's cherry crop be bountiful?
They always figure 60 days from bloom to harvest.
The sounds of silence. Not only are the northern lights beautiful, but they also produce sounds.
How that sound is produced, what triggers the sound, why it should exist.
And tips on how to keep your spring garden healthy all year round.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Thunderstorms tore through parts of Tennessee and Virginia Tuesday, leaving a mess behind. Let's start in the Tri-Cities area. The aftermath includes damaged buildings and plenty of snapped trees. In Pennington Gap, Virginia, a tornado warning was issued Tuesday evening. The strong weather also knocked out 911 service in Lee County, Virginia for a bit before it was restored. In Utah, some rivers are reaching levels that have not been seen in more than 20 years. That includes Spanish Fork, where Emma Riley reports homeowners are trying their best to keep the water out.
This is one we'll be talking about for years to come, for sure.
David Hansen and his wife have lived at their home in Spanish Fork since 2001. Both say they've never seen anything like this.
It's been exhausting. We've just been sandbagging, equipment, working everywhere. Lots and lots of volunteer help.
With help from more than 100 volunteers, they built this barrier of hay bales and sandbags to stop the water from reaching their home. But the river is moving fast.
In this area, the river may usually be maybe 10 or 12 feet wide, maybe 3 or 4 feet deep. It could be a little deeper in some places, but right now it's running at least more than double that.
Hansen says the flooding reached its peak on Sunday, but the water made its way into their crawl space on Tuesday morning.
We knew this was coming. We just didn't know it was going to be this much and this fast.
But they are hopeful it has finally reached a plateau.
We've had so much help, and we just appreciate that in the community. We would like to be the ones helping someone else, but this time it's been just everybody helping. That's just been amazing.
And flooding isn't a problem just here in the States. A red warning alert has been issued for portions of northern Italy, where officials say that heavy flooding is causing landslides. On Tuesday, it was estimated that nearly 6 inches of rain fell in a 24-hour period. Heavy rain in the Bologna area forced schools to close today. And Formula One announced the Grand Prix this weekend in Italy has been canceled due to the risk of flooding. Back here in the States, a stretch of the Gallatin River in Montana is going to be listed as impaired. The EPA granting final approval. Experts are looking at a segment of the river stretching from Yellowstone National Park downstream to the Spanish Creek confluence. This listing comes after 5 consecutive years of severe algae blooms. The state will now start the process of cleaning up. It includes scientific studies to identify the pollutants and where they actually came from. And the city of Austin, Texas, says blue-green algae has been found on 2 water bodies, Lady Bird Lake and Lake Austin. Monique Lopez reports their watershed protection department warns people to assume the algae is toxic and to avoid it.
Summer isn't officially here, but the weather is heating up, bringing with it the risk of toxic blue-green algae.
They're basically always around. Unfortunately, when the circumstances are right for them, kind of wrong for us, their growth becomes excessive. And they can produce toxins.
Between May 2nd and May 12th, the city found blue-green algae at all monitored sites on Lady Bird Lake and Lake Austin.
On Lake Austin, we've observed it at each of the parks that we've sampled, Jessica Hollis Park, Emma Long Park, and down at the Walsh Boat Landing. In Lady Bird Lake, we sample at Redbud Isle, Auditorium Shores, and down at the Festival Boat Ramp.
Austin Watershed Protection is asking for people to avoid contact with algae and urges not letting your pets drink water straight from the lake. Also, rinse off after getting into the water. Anyone who comes in contact with or ingests the blue-green algae can become sick. The symptoms depend on several factors and can be similar to other illnesses. For dogs, the symptoms are more obvious and present sooner after exposure.
Unfortunately, affects the dogs very quickly. So if you see your dog kind of stumbling, foaming at the mouth, having other neurological issues, it's usually within the first half an hour to hour of exposure, and you want to get them to the vet right away.
Results from the samples collected won't be available until June.
Washington, D.C. is known for its cherry blossoms, but those trees don't produce delicious fruit. But in Wisconsin, the weather is finally just right for their cherry trees to flower and bloom, a sign the cherries are on the way. Eric Peterson has more.
The bloom came real quick here last week. We got into the 70s, and they popped out real fast.
A sea of white seems to fill the air Monday morning at Shartner's Farm Market. Owner Dave Shartner says sweet cherry trees typically open first.
Last Monday they started blooming, and by Wednesday, Thursday they were in full bloom last week. The tarts started blooming here on Friday, and through the weekend they got into full bloom.
He says cold weather here at the end of April had an impact on some of the 28-acre crop.
The sweet cherries were a little further ahead of the tarts, and they didn't have, there's very little damage, but the tarts did have some damage. And it's kind of hard to tell until we get the fruit set on the tree.
Shartner says the cherry blossoms should last about another week or so, or until rain or wind takes them down. He says he expects a good season.
This is kind of a normal bloom, you know, the middle of May. So they always figure 60 days from bloom to harvest, so we should be harvesting somewhere, you know, the tarts, the middle of July. The sweet should start around the 10th of July if the weather stays normal.
Well, there's lots of buzz about a video showing a police officer being attacked by a swarm of agitated bees in California. But apparently this isn't an isolated incident. Leslie Marin has a story from Los Angeles.
An LAPD bees. You can see as he tries to swat them away from his face over and over again. It causes him to lose his balance. He gets back up, unfortunately bloodied, but is eventually treated by firefighters.
There is like a cloud of hundreds of bees over there. I said, oh boy, this is gonna, that's why right away I put my gear on because I can see them. They're mad as could be.
LA City Fire confirmed 2 people, including the volunteer officer, were taken to the hospital after being attacked by the swarm just before 4 p.m. Monday. A bee removal company that showed up after the attack believed the bees originated from a hive near the roof of this home on Adlon Road in Encino. You can see as they swarmed workers.
This is not a normal behavior for these bees to be this angry, want to kill you. This is not okay.
Firefighters warned residents to stay inside and close all windows and doors as the bee removal crew sprayed the hive.
Because of the situation and the emergency, I had to spray them and kill them.
And although it's not known why the bees began to attack, professionals say this is a reminder to never try to remove a beehive on your own.
You lock your house, get in your house, lock your doors, and call for help.
And take a look at this. Smoke from wildfires in Western Canada have shrouded the clear sky with an orange tint. Meanwhile, shifting winds are making the firefight a stiff challenge in Alberta. More communities have been ordered to evacuate. Residents of a town northwest of Edmonton were issued mandatory evacuation orders after 2 out-of-control fires joined together, forming a giant blaze. And a scary scene at a youth baseball game over the weekend. A 7-year-old catcher was engulfed, look at that, by a short-lived dust devil Sunday afternoon in Jacksonville, Florida. Sand and debris spiraled around Bauer Zoya for a few seconds before the umpire rescued him. But the 7-year-old said it felt like around 10 minutes to him. However, that dust didn't stop him from playing. Unfortunately, his team did not end up winning the 3-game tournament. Look at that. He grabbed him. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll find out what impact wildfires are having on our air quality across the U.S. And we'll talk with an expert to find out if the northern lights really do make sounds.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. Look at the northeast. Cooler air is draining into the northeast as a cold front made its way through last night. Temps today, they're going to top out in the 50s and low 60s. There's a lot of sunshine. There'll be a few clouds in northern parts of New England. The wind is going to be stiff out of the northwest, though. In the northeast, we'll get gusts 30 to 35 miles per hour at times. Now, as we go into our Thursday, the big weather story will be the potential for a frost freeze early in the day. Temperatures by afternoon should make a run at the 60s.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region. Cooler air filtering in as we work our way through the day on Wednesday in the wake of our latest weather maker, a cold front. So high temperatures going to be, at least about 10 degrees cooler than they were during the day on Tuesday, getting up to near 70 in Baltimore, low and mid-70s across Virginia, even a little bit cooler than everybody else as you head across the Mason-Dixon line, but it will come with sunshine as fair weather high pressure builds in our latest weather maker. That's the scene here.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Michael Ehrenberg with a look at your southeast regional forecast for this Wednesday. Most of the area will start out sunny to partly cloudy. Showers and storms will fire up, though, along a boundary from Mississippi through Alabama and Georgia. It could be heavy moving off the Carolina coast. Scattered sea breeze storms popping up across the Florida peninsula, moving from west to east offshore later on in the day. It's going to be warm everywhere. You can see where it's going to rain more. Temperatures are highs in the 70s, like Atlanta and Birmingham. Could be low 90s for parts of Florida.
The National Weather Desk.
For the last several years, we've all gotten used to hearing about hazy skies and thick smoke from wildfires. Recently, smoke from wildfires in Canada made it all the way here to Washington, D.C. Experts say that smoke puts us at risk. Steve McCarron is in Seattle with a look at the worsening data and how you can plan right now to breathe easy.
Wildfire smoke can easily transform normally picturesque views of major city skylines into seas of haze.
It just feels pretty apocalyptic.
Shocking images show how the effects from a bad wildfire season in 2021 stretched all the way to New York City. And at one point last year, Seattle had the worst air quality in the world.
Are we getting to the point where this is going to be norm?
Sadly, I think probably so.
Savannah Devlin, who studied wildfires as a source of pollution for the past 5 years, tells me, as far as we know, wildfire smoke does not cause an onset of new disease, but the particulate matter in the air can make existing health conditions like asthma and cardiovascular disease worse. A study from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UC San Diego found fine particulates from wildfire smoke can be several times more harmful to our health than things like car exhaust.
We have these big smoke events that come through for a week or two, and as soon as they're gone, people really want to forget about it instead of preparing for the next fire that comes through.
Researchers at Stanford University found the number of people experiencing an extreme smoke day increased 27-fold over the past decade, with nearly 25 million people across the lower 48 affected by dangerous smoke in 2020 alone.
It is clear that we are seeing a pattern.
Washington State's Land Commissioner says one of the best ways to reduce the risk of these extremely smoky days is to attack wildfires quickly and stop them from growing so rapidly.
More of our resources will come from the southeast part of the United States or the northeast or the Midwest parts because their fire seasons are different. But when it comes to the western United States, we are all hands on deck, all of us trying to fight these fires as fast as we can.
We still don't know how the wet winter will impact California's wildfire season, but all that water is impacting state crops. Last week, the USDA released their California almond forecast for 2023, and the outlook isn't good. The long stretch of wet weather is putting a damper on growing season. The survey examined results from 500 almond growers across the state. This year's yield is estimated at just over 1,800 pounds per acre, a 90-pound drop from last year, the lowest yield since 2005. And it's unlikely that you will actually grow almonds in your backyard. But with spring here and summer quickly approaching, gardeners are eager to start flexing their green thumbs. So Jonathan May spoke with a soil fertility specialist and professor at Montana State University for some pointers on how to keep your garden healthy all season long.
Nice weather may have you itching to get out the door to work on your garden or landscape around your home. But one expert I talked to cautions you to take your time.
So a lot of times people feel in a rush, like I need to get my fertilizer down, but that's not usually the case. Right now, there's probably plenty of nutrients to get their plants, their vegetables, another month into the growing season.
Jones recommends applying fertilizer to lawns in late May, but says gardens can be fertilized later.
Generally, what happens over winter is enough nutrients get released into the soil that it's not like soils are just starved of nutrients right now.
Jones' advice is simple. Less is more.
One of the biggest ones is that if a little is good, more is better. And so what I see in vegetable gardens, when people do get them tested, when they get their soil tested, is they often have too high of nutrients.
Jones says excess nutrients can tie up other nutrients and prevent growth. When testing soil, he's found 5 times the phosphorus needed and 3 times the potassium at times.
So I'd say that's a pretty major misconception, maybe the biggest one that I deal with in the gardening world.
Throughout the rest of spring, Jones recommends keeping a close eye on your plants.
So really paying attention to plants, looking for, off colors, purpling, yellow can indicate a nutrient deficiency, and that might be too late to correct this year, but it can tell you maybe what to fertilize with next year.
It's no secret the northern lights are stunning, but did you also know they also make a sound, possibly? Well, that is being debated, so our Emily Gracie is getting to the bottom of this, talking with a science historian that has spent her career unlocking the mystery of the sounds of the northern lights.
There was an increase in the volume of accounts of auroral sound coming from very different places, coming from northern Canada, coming from the Shetland Islands, coming from Norway and Russia. And it was interesting that all of the accounts seemed to corroborate one another. They were all talking about very similar types of sounds, but maybe increasing with increased auroral activity and always of this kind of crackling, static-y nature.
This has been proven, correct?
There is still some debate within the scientific community. Generally, it's largely accepted that there is a sound that is associated with the Northern Lights, but it's not discovered entirely how that sound is produced, what triggers the sound, why it should exist. The researchers in Finland at the moment who are carrying out sound observations, their theory is that there's an inversion layer in the atmosphere where instead of getting cooler as you ascend, it suddenly gets warmer at about 70 meters above the ground. But again, they haven't discovered why the sound is triggered for some auroral displays and not for others.
Has anybody done any research on any connection between colors and sounds?
That's an interesting one. There's been a lot of work on the color of the aurora, a lot of spectroscopy going on. In all honesty, the color and the sound have been generally quite separate.
I heard that you can hear them sometimes even when you can't see them.
I generally find from the literature, it looks like the sounds appear when you have a really violent auroral display, one that's moving a lot. But I have also heard that people are able to pick up aurora that are happening on radio echoes, or you can even get daytime aurora that you can pick up again on radio echoes. And sometimes people claim that there are sounds associated with those. But again, that's quite difficult to corroborate as well.
If you want to hear the sounds of the auroras, go to our YouTube page. You will find a longer version of the interview along with links to those sounds. Just search the National Weather Desk and be sure to subscribe while you are there. And if you're a fan of these types of interviews, you should check out our podcast, Off the Radar, hosted by Emily Gracie. Next episode drops every Tuesday this week. It's all about Mars and what the weather on the red planet is really like. You can find Off the Radar wherever you get your podcast. And while on the topic, NASA researchers are about to spend a year on Mars. a simulated Mars, that is. The project, called Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog, it will isolate 4 people inside of a mock Mars base in Texas for 378 days, roughly the same length of time as a manned Mars mission. The participants will have a pre-planned schedule, eating like astronauts, and deal with simulated maintenance and equipment failures. The first simulation is scheduled to begin in June. And as we head to break, we leave you with aerial views of the Cincinnati Nature Preserve.
Good Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest. We got a little bit of rain starting to move in to the far western part of the plains, but most of the Midwest is going to be beautiful today. A little cool across the Great Lakes region, but we've got plenty of sunshine. That rain will continue moving its way to the east as we head into your Thursday and eventually closer to the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes by Friday, with sunshine coming out across the plains, most of us in the 60s or 70s.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're starting off a little cool this morning. Some dry air has moved in. A very weak front has pushed down toward the south. It will continue to do so and fade out. That means we'll see more sunshine today, and that means, it'll warm up a little bit more as well. Look for temperatures to be warming up quickly into the 80s across most of the region. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia, and that's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and good Wednesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Here comes the late May heat around the west. You can see temps again skyrocketing into the mid to the upper 90s between Las Vegas and Tucson, and the heat building again around the Emerald and the Rose cities there along I-5 between Seattle and Portland. Versus 60s at the coast in LA and San Diego, San Francisco too, courtesy of the marine layer. Next weather maker, this front pushing into the Intermountain West for thunderstorms today. And that's the scene from here.
It's almost time for summer, and with it comes lots of humidity in some places, which can make it feel even hotter. Meteorologist Ryan Miranda explains the heat index, a term you're going to hear a lot about in the coming months.
Heat and humidity is all we're going to be talking about in the southeast, as the heat index makes a big difference on temperatures. To explain what that really means, let's say the air temperature was around 90 degrees. Now, when it's hot outside, our body begins to sweat. And when that sweat evaporates, that's what actually begins to cool our body off. However, in the moist, hot summer months, the dew point, the measure of moisture in the atmosphere, could be up into the mid-70s. And this will make the relative humidity values feel a lot more sweltering and muggy. Around 60% of these conditions were to be true. So instead of the sweat beginning to evaporate off our skin, all this moisture, the sweat isn't able to evaporate as effectively. So instead of our body recognizing the air temperature is 90 degrees, it feels a lot warmer. It'll feel more like 100 degrees, around a 10-degree difference. So the heat index really does make a big difference.
We'd love to connect with you. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Well, we all have seen them, large planes or helicopters dropping huge amounts of water and wildfires. But what is it like to be the pilot of one of those massive machines? Tomorrow, the National Weather Desk will talk with one of those pilots to find out. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Angela Brown.